All right. What is going on, everybody? Rainbow here, everybody. Welcome to a Let's Talk Tropics live stream. I've not done one of these in quite a while, but we are going to go ahead and essentially do this. Now, we've got, quite a few things to talk about in the tropics. We're going to get some people in here first before we do start to really get, I guess you could say, a little bit into detail on the tropics. But we've got quite a bit of stuff going on in the tropics. That is definitely a certainty for sure. But what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Let's Talk Tropics live stream. Welcome Gamer Mason, Ethan, Dark RBLX, Storm Tracking, Void, Timmy, Super, basically everybody. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the live stream, everybody. I know we're going to get more people in here, so we're going to get some more people in here before we do start this before we do start this Let's Talk Tropics stream up. We've not done any of this in a while, so keep that in mind. I've not really done a Let's Talk Tropics stream in quite a while, so if you guys were not here when I did this last year and year before that, well, this is a series that I decided to start a while back, where I kind of just go a little bit into detail on the tropics and just everything that's currently going on around the tropics and all that sorts of stuff. I mean, this won't only be the Atlantic. Of course, the main topic would be the Atlantic, but of course we would look at the Eastern Pacific, the Central Pacific, the Western Pacific, basically any basin, I guess you could say that's in the Northern Hemisphere. I wouldn't really look at the Southern Hemisphere right now, mostly due to it not actually being, the season as of yet in the Southern Hemisphere for tropical activity, but Again, we're mostly going to be focusing on the Atlantic today, so keep that in mind. But again, welcome everybody to the live stream. Hello, Timmy, and hello, Pleb, and just everybody else. Hello, Lily. Welcome everybody to the live stream. I hope you guys' day has been actually going good. Happy Friday, by the way. So yeah, that's pretty good. What's going on? What's going on? Tropical weather updated, or TWU, we all call them that. But what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Let's Talk Tropics live stream. So, yes. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. We're going to start out with Hurricane Fiona. All right. So this is Hurricane Fiona, the 38th advisory. It's absolutely insane if you really think about it. It's the 38th advisory on Hurricane Fiona. Now, right now, the Hurricane Center, they got this with winds of 125 miles an hour. That is equivalent to 110 knots. Pressure is very, very low right now at about 940 millibars. In fact, most of the models I've been seeing have actually been showing Fiona might even deepen and might go, under some sort of bombogenesis even after it becomes an extratropical cyclone. Of course, we're looking for Fiona to bring some really devastating conditions to Atlantic Canada and parts of Newfoundland and all that sorts of stuff. It's definitely going to be a very, very, very bad time to be in that portion of Canada and parts of Newfoundland. In fact, if we go ahead over here and we go ahead and we look at the cone for Hurricane Fiona, you can see this right here. Look how big this wind field is. I mean, this is an absolutely crazy wind field. Of course, it's not, abnormal. Of course, this is kind of typical for a system that is this far north in latitude. In fact, if you go ahead and look at the public advisory over here, I think it's public advisory. Yeah, it's the public advisory. You can see that the hurricane force winds, they extend about 115 miles from the center. And the tropical storm conditions, the tropical storm force winds extend almost 350 miles from the center. So keep that in mind, that it is rather abnormal to have a major this far north, just because of how, not as warm, the sea surface temperatures this far north aren't as warm enough to support a hurricane or a tropical or a major hurricane or anything like that. But of course, Fiona is one of those exceptions. Of course, we do expect it to become an extratropical cyclone probably over the next, I would say, probably next 12 to 18 hours or something like that. We do got tropical storm warnings all over Atlantic Canada. As you can see there, we've even got some hurricane warnings for parts of Nova Scotia, and also going up there towards Newfoundland as well, with some tropical storm warnings as well. Part of some tropical storm watches. This is really, really rare to see up all the way up here. I mean, you're almost getting up to Greenland at this point with tropical storm watches. I mean, that honestly is definitely crazy to see. But again, we do got some hurricane warnings, basically for most of Nova Scotia, going all the way up over here towards portions of Newfoundland and parts of Canada. Right here, you can see is under a tropical storm warning as well, tropical storm watch as well. Again, we actually do expect the tropical storm conditions to arrive probably sometime later this evening, going into early tomorrow morning. That's when you'll probably start to see the tropical storm conditions arrive in these areas. Now, the hurricane conditions, those are probably going to arrive probably around, I would say, by at least 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Probably even earlier than that, because this thing is moving rather quickly. I mean, we're talking this storm right now is moving north-northeast at 40 miles an hour. So this is we're probably going to be seeing the hurricane conditions probably arrive probably sometime very late tonight. So keep that in mind. But this honestly is a rather big wind field for sure. Again, the wind field of tropical storm force winds, they actually extend outward again, almost up to 350 miles from the center. And I do believe the hurricane force winds extend about 130 miles almost from the center. So this thing definitely does have a pretty big wind field. And as you can see, even though this is going to become extra tropical, you can see it's definitely going to be making its way pretty close to Greenland, of course. And you go ahead and look at the discussion over here, you can see it's still going to be a 40-mile-an-hour extra tropical cyclone that far north. So, of course, you're going to definitely be still seeing some pretty gusty winds. Again, that's why we got tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings, because even though it might not be a hurricane when this thing makes landfall in portions of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, this thing's going to have hurricane force winds. So I guess the Hurricane Center just decided to put some hurricane warnings and tropical storm warnings in effect, because, I mean, there definitely is still a possibility that maybe it could still be a tropical cyclone at that point, and that's, of course, why they do have that going on right there. Look at this wind history. This is actually rather interesting. So this is where Fiona kind of started out right here. You can see this is where it, made some pretty bad devastation to Puerto Rico and parts of the Dominican Republic. A lot of damage, a lot of flooding and all that, flooding reports and all that stuff was reported down there. And, of course, as you can see, we in Bermuda, barely missed the hurricane force winds. I wouldn't even been surprised if we did see some hurricane force gusts. They're very, very, very possible. I did see some video footage out of Bermuda. It was had some pretty big waves. We did have some pretty strong winds going on over there in Bermuda as well, but that has since ended. We do still have a tropical storm warning for portions of Bermuda. Of course, that's probably going to be expiring here at the next intermediate advisory. So do keep that in mind. Of course, this right here is the wind speed probability. Ignore this and ignore this. This is, of course, from different tropical systems. But this is Fiona's wind field. You can see right here, we basically got a guaranteed 100% chance of tropical storm conditions over the next 120 hours from where it currently is right now all the way up into portions of Nova Scotia, parts of Newfoundland, and even going up almost up here into Greenland. Might even have the possibility of some tropical storm force gusts going on as well. And then you take the probability of 50 knots. Now, I think this is about 60 miles an hour. Again, 100% chance of happening right there. And it's even still possible even this far north as well. Hurricane wind speed probability, you can see, not 100%, but it's basically there. Basically an 80 to 90% chance of hurricane force winds in Nova Scotia and parts of Newfoundland as well. This is, of course, a lot lower than, of course, you would see with the tropical storm force winds and the 60-mile-an-hour winds, but it's still pretty big, and we basically have high confidence that this thing's probably going to be hurricane force, if not still a tropical cyclone when this thing makes landfall in Nova Scotia. Again, this thing's moving at 40 miles an hour, so this thing's definitely moving at a very, very fast speed. Now, the arrival time of the winds, we actually expect the winds, I would say, probably by 9 or 10 p.m. tonight is probably when we're going to see the winds arrive in Nova Scotia. And in Newfoundland, I'd probably say by Saturday around 1, 2, 3 o'clock is probably when we're going to start to see that arrive. So keep that in mind. Those are the areas that we definitely would need to continue watching for Fiona. Now, if we go ahead and we look at the key messages over here, Fiona is expected to affect portions of Atlantic Canada as a powerful hurricane-force cyclone tonight and into tomorrow. And we do see significant impacts from high winds, storm surge, and heavy rainfall being expected. Again, we have hurricane and tropical storm warnings that are in effect for much of Atlantic Canada. And also we're looking at some very large swells that are generated by Fiona. And we do expect that to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions along much of the east coast of the United States, the northwestern Bahamas, Bermuda, and Atlantic Canada during the next couple of days. So keep that in mind. All right. Now we're going to take our attention over here to Tropical Storm Gaston. Now, right now the winds are still, they've actually went down a little bit compared to a couple of days ago. But as of the 9 p.m. GMT advisory for Tropical Storm Gaston, it's still 60 miles an hour with a pressure of 995 millibars, and it's located right now at 39.6 north, 28.7 west, and it's moving south right now at 9 miles an hour. Now, this is the cone for Gaston. And as you can see, we still got tropical storm warnings for the Azores for, of course, tropical storm conditions. We do expect this to become a post-tropical cyclone or extratropical cyclone by Sunday morning. And then, of course, it could be heading off to basically the west. Of course, again, it will be post-tropical at this point. We don't expect any reformation. Of course, may be possible. I definitely think it could, but I don't think it's a very, very, very low probability that we would probably see this try to regenerate into a tropical cyclone after it does become post-tropical. Now, the key messages for this, basically we're looking at tropical storm conditions over portions of the western and central Azores that will continue. And we do see Gaston producing some heavy rain over the western and central Azores basically today and going into tomorrow. And we do see this rainfall very likely to, if not already, resulting in some landslides and some areas of flooding as well. What's going on, Maple, and what's going on, NCHS Tracker? Welcome, everybody, to the stream. Welcome, 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 everybody, to the stream. All right, now we're going to take your attention over here to Hermine. All right, now this is going to be a very short-lived tropical cyclone. Winds right now at 40 miles an hour with a pressure of 1,002 millibars, and it's moving north-northwest at 10 miles an hour. All right, now this is the track of Tropical Storm Hermine. All right, I think the highest I saw the winds was about 45 miles an hour. I could be wrong, but I think it was 45 miles an hour. And yes, I was right. Here in about 12 hours, we could see Hermine peaking with winds of about 45 miles an hour before we do start to see this weekend and potentially become a remnant low here, probably within the next 2.5 to 3 days. So keep this in mind. This is going to be a rather short-lived tropical cyclone. So keep that in mind. Now, the wind speed probabilities, we don't really see anything with this storm affecting land. Definitely, I think this is one of the easternmost tropical cyclones to form in quite a long time. So it's definitely broken a record for probably one of the easternmost tropical cyclones in a rather long time. So keep that in mind. This thing really, honestly, formed right off the coast of Africa. That hasn't really happened for quite a while. So keep that in mind. It's really how favorable conditions are right now in the Atlantic. And then we've got our main focus right now. All right, this is Tropical Depression 9. Winds right now at 35 miles an hour with a pressure of 1,006 millibars, moving west-northwest at 15 miles an hour. All right, now this is the cone. All right, this is very likely to become our 9th named storm of the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season. This would be Tropical Storm Ian, very likely to become Ian. And as you can see, the Hurricane Center does expect this to become a tropical storm over the next 12 hours or so. And as you can see, it's going to, of course, continue to move a little bit westward, and then it's going to start to take a more north kind of eastward track. And as you can see, we got Jamaica. It's under Tropical Storm Watch. We've got some hurricane watches that have been issued for portions. I think that is the Cayman Islands. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I do believe that is the Cayman Islands and all that. But we do expect this to become a hurricane. This actually is expected to become a hurricane by very early Monday morning, so keep that in mind. That it might go over the western portion of Cuba. That is the worst case scenario that you do not want a hurricane to do. You do not want for a hurricane to weaken. You do not want it to go over the western portion of Cuba, because that is not where the mountains are. All right, that is not where the mountains are. With this tropical cyclone, unfortunately, the mountains are over here. And that is where you want the tropical cyclone to track when it's threatening land, because it could tear apart the low-level circulation. But unfortunately, it's going to be going over the western portion of of Cuba, and it's very, very likely, unfortunately, that this thing might be a rather, I think it might even be a Category 1, or maybe even a very high-end Category 1 to low-end Category 2. By this time this thing actually gets all the way up to Cuba. And then, of course, it gets out into the Gulf of Mexico, and then it hits that loop current, because the loop current's right around this area, I think. So this thing might hit the loop current, which is definitely something we don't want to see, because as you can see, by Wednesday afternoon, all right, by Wednesday afternoon, we could see this thing approaching the west coast of Florida. Now, the Hurricane Center, looking at the discussion, says this might make landfall with winds of about 115 miles an hour as this thing does come ashore. And by the way, this right here is around the Tampa Bay area. I think this is around the Clearwater Beach area. Fort Myers, I think, is around this area. So really anywhere from Naples all the way up really to Sarasota is definitely in play for this storm. Because, again, as I said, I mean, if this does make landfall as a major hurricane, this would actually be the first time in over 100 years. All right? This would be the first time in over 100 years if this makes landfall around this area. And if it gets into Tampa Bay, this would be the first time in over 100 years that a major hurricane would have striked Tampa Bay. So keep that in mind. That is how long it's been since Tampa has had a major hurricane landfall. So if this thing makes landfall around this area, or goes around this area, because around this area is kind of Tampa Bay. So if it goes over Tampa Bay and goes into Tampa, this definitely, honestly, could be the first time in over 100 years that we've actually gotten a major hurricane striking this portion of the western coast of Florida. By the way, this would also be the first time since 2017, that's been 5 years, since the peninsula of Florida would have gotten hit by a major hurricane. That, of course, would have been Hurricane Irma, coincidentally also an I-named storm. So this might be the first time since Irma that we might actually get a major hurricane striking Florida. Of course, details are still needing to be ironed out. Some of the models I've been seeing earlier today actually shifted it more west. But of course, the Hurricane Center still does this, getting either really close to Florida or even possibly making landfall in Florida by Wednesday afternoon. So honestly, I will go ahead and tell you this right now. If you live in Florida, I would say anywhere from Miami all the way up to almost Jacksonville, you need to watch this storm very closely, if not already preparing, because this thing could come in a lot stronger than 115 miles an hour. Keep this in mind. This is just what the Hurricane Center is showing right now. This don't say anything about this not undergoing rapid intensification. This, honestly, I'm not trying to scare anybody, all right? I'm not trying to scare anybody, but the odds are, because the sea surface temperatures, I mean, look at this, all right? Take a look at this, all right? Let me go ahead and go over here to the, hold on, give me a second, guys. I should have probably loaded this up over here. But take a look, all right? I'm not saying we would get any rapid intensification, but honestly, the conditions are definitely there. Sea surface temperatures are definitely there, and it's honestly pretty scary, to say the least. I mean, look at these sea surface temperatures, all right? If this stupid thing would load. Hold on, guys. Technical difficulties here. Look at where it's going to go over. It's going to go over 30 to 30.5 degrees Celsius waters, all right? this is where the track is. It's going to be going over 30 to 30.5 degrees Celsius waters. So this thing could definitely rapidly intensify and be a whole lot stronger than 115 miles an hour. It just really depends on the overall environment. Of course, a lot more has to go in play than sea surface temperatures. You got to have moisture. You got to have low enough wind shear. And unfortunately, we've got low enough wind shear. So that's definitely another ingredient that we've unfortunately got for what is likely to become Hurricane Ian. Here's another issue. Look at these sea surface temperatures. All right, look at that. That is 30.5 degrees Celsius well before it even gets into Cuba. And there's this little area right here that's even up to 32 degrees Celsius. So might this be a little bit stronger than 90 miles an hour as this thing hits Cuba? Definitely possible. I think 100 miles an hour might be, maybe 95, 100 miles an hour. Definitely a possibility before this thing does hit Cuba. And then again, it's going to get into very warm sea surface temperatures. And then, look, right there, again, it's going to be going over those very, very, very warm sea surface temperatures. Again, between 29 and 30.5 degrees Celsius. That is hurricane fuel. And honestly, definitely could undergo some rapid intensification. But keep this in mind, all right? Even though we've got these temperatures here, all right? The reason why I'm not saying we're going to get any rapid intensification is because of this, all right? So we've got these 30 to 30.5 degrees Celsius waters, but it's only deep around this area, all right? If you look at the ocean heat content, it's really only deep around this area. We don't got really very deep ocean heat content around a lot of these areas. It's more of kind of moderate and kind of goes down to more of those moderate levels. In fact, if we go ahead over here and give me a second, guys, I'm going to try and find the ocean heat content graphic over here because I know it's on here. So just give me a second, guys. I think it's right here. So you can see we got really, really deep ocean heat content. Goes down to as much as 175 centimeters or more. And, of course, we've only got, I would say we probably only got moderate ocean heat content in the Gulf. So, you know, even though we've got these 30 to 30.5 degrees Celsius waters, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get, you know, rapid intensification. Now, I think maybe this would probably be maybe an extra 5 or 10 miles an hour stronger before this would make landfall in Florida. That's definitely a possibility. But do I think we're going to get 150 miles an hour? Who knows? Honestly, it's possible, but I'm not saying it's going to happen. I would say maybe 115, 120 at best right now. But, of course, it could definitely change depending on how fast this thing tries to, of course, get together. But we've overall got really, really, really warm waters that go from literally the Leeward Islands all the way into the Gulf and parts of the Gulf Stream as well. So, honestly, anything that tries to form after what is likely to become Ian would definitely have fuel, and that's definitely a very big cause for concern, to say the least. But we're definitely going to be watching Tropical Depression 9. Definitely could possibly be a major hurricane as this strikes Florida. And I would say if you live in Florida right now, I would prepare right now because this thing's coming by Wednesday. By the middle of the week next week, this thing could be on your doorstep and it'll be too late to prepare and evacuate. So if the emergency officials tell you to evacuate, please do so because I don't want to see anybody die. Nobody wants to see anybody die. So, if you've got, if the emergency officials call for evacuation in your zone, then you go. Please. Just go. Don't want anybody to die. Don't want you to become history. So, just evacuate. And if you can't, just try to evacuate. Just try to evacuate, really, honestly. And then we take your attention over here to 99L. All right, now, of course, the Hurricane Center, they still give us a 20% chance of forming over the next 48 hours and a 30% chance over the next 5 days. Now, showers and thunderstorms, they do remain disorganized in association with a broad area of low pressure located several hundreds of miles west-southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. Despite unfavorable upper-level winds, there is some slow development of this system still being possible over the next several days while it does drift westward or northward over the central tropical Atlantic. There is still a little bit of a chance that maybe this could become Julia, but it's very unlikely due to the, of course, highly unfavorable upper-level winds. But, of course, as the Hurricane Center noted, it is in very unfavorable upper-level winds, but they do still expect some slow development. I don't think anything strong would come out of this. I think at best maybe a very weekend tropical storm if it does even form, but I think this thing will die out. We'll just have to wait and see what does happen. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tropical cyclones in the Atlantic. All right, that's bonkers. We've got 4 tropical cyclones in the Atlantic right now. One's a hurricane, 2's tropical storms, and 1's a depression. Bonkers. Bonkers. To think how inactive this hurricane season originally was. All right. It's crazy how historically quiet that this hurricane season was. And then all of a sudden, when we turned the month to September, it just all of a sudden blew up. Started with Danielle, then we had Earl, then we had Fiona, Gaston, Hermine, possibly Ian now, and very unlikely chance of it happening, but maybe even the possibility of Julia. I mean, it's crazy how we went from a inactive period to a very active period in the tropics, but you got to have the peak at some point, and of course, as we all know, very likely this is probably the peak of hurricane season. And this is kind of interesting. I kind of also kind of noticed this. I don't know if you guys noticed this at all. But look at this. All right. So this goes right there. It kind of makes a little bit of like, kind of a square of some sort. It's something, it's kind of stupid. I was just kind of noting that, but it kind of made a little bit of like a square. Just ignore me, guys. I'm stupid. I'm crazy. I'm an idiot. But it honestly looks kind of like a square of some sort. So, a trapezoid, maybe a trapezoid or something like that. Maybe a trapezoid. Maybe not a square, but maybe a trapezoid. So, but it is rather peculiar, just like exactly what of a shape. Like the fact that this is kind of making a little bit of like a trapezoid type shape. It's definitely something to say the least. All right, so now we take our attention to the Eastern Pacific. We do got Newton over here, the very short-lived tropical cyclone. Right now, Newton's at 45 miles an hour, moving west-northwest at 10 miles an hour. In fact, we only see this possibly being a tropical storm for maybe 12, 24 hours or so, and then we possibly see this becoming a tropical depression. And this should become post-tropical, I would say, probably by Monday morning, but I guess we'll see what happens there for sure. And then we've got this area that is churning right here. Of course, this is very unlikely to form. Hurricane Center gives it a 0% chance of forming over the next 48 hours and 5 days. Tropical low pressure located just south of the Gulf of Topeka is producing minimal shower activity, and this system is expected to move slowly west-southwestward at about 5 miles an hour, and development is not expected due to strong upper-level winds. Of course, earlier, I think the Hurricane Center gave this like a 10% chance or something like that. But honestly, now the chances have decreased. And of course, we're looking over here in the Central Pacific. Nothing going on in the Central Pacific. We're still awaiting Hone. Don't even know when that's going to happen. We had 2 possibilities of seeing Hone earlier this year. But, of course, that did not happen. And unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen this year. So we're waiting on Hone. But unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen in 2022. It'd be very, very shocked if we get Hone in 2022 for sure. Now we're going to take our attention over here to tropical tidbits. Of course, this is Hurricane Fiona, and my God, has this thing degraded over the last several hours or so. In fact, if we can go ahead and get this actually trying to, load. Just give me a second, guys. We got 32 people watching the stream. We have literally 32 people watching the stream. Are we talking about what? Wait, are we talking about like something to watch as in Ida Remnants level, something to watch? I don't know, honestly. I definitely don't think that will be something that we would count on yet. I don't think that's going to happen. But as you can see, all right, this is Fiona. Well, what else is there to say? It's lost its eye, and of course, mostly because of its forward speed, it's not really looking that well like it was, a couple days ago. Had a well-defined center, well-defined eye. And now this thing, honestly, is racing to Atlantic Canada, and this thing's honestly going to be devastating Atlantic Canada probably over the next several hours or so. But this thing went from having an eye to essentially almost being starting to actually be exposed in terms of its low-level circulation. So I think the low-level circulation is kind of in this little area right here. So it's kind of starting to open up a little bit. It could be a sign that this is starting to undergo extratropical transition. So keep that in mind. We could be seeing that happen probably in the next, I would say probably the next 4 hours or so. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Then you take your attention to Gaston over here. Gaston is just, well, it's holding on to dear life, I think, honestly. I don't know why my tropical tidbits thing is being slow. I do think Fiona is undergoing extratropical transition as we speak. So this thing probably won't be tropical. Probably won't be a tropical cyclone that much longer. Fiona won't. But as you can see, this right here is Gaston. It did have a lot more convection earlier. We did get a little bit of a CB, a little bit of a convection blow up as this thing was getting a little bit closer to the Azores here. But as you can see, it's really not that well defined. It's kind of, I would say, it's probably definitely a disorganized mess at this point. It's kind of a slop. You can kind of see what appears to maybe be the low-level circulation, maybe right here of some sort. I could be 100% wrong on that, but might that be the low-level circulation of Gaston? Definitely is a possibility. Most of the convection is right around this area, going over some portions of the Azores as we speak. Some heavy rains and mudslides going on over there. But I definitely think this might be maybe the low-level circulation of Gaston. So this thing definitely is starting to get... I definitely think this thing is starting to show, I think, some signs of shear. Because, I mean, where it's upright right now, I mean, this is... it's getting into some high shear environments. So I would definitely think this thing's definitely getting sheared and probably getting a little bit of dry air getting into it. And this is definitely starting to fall apart. And this is probably likely to become post-tropical very, 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 very soon. Then we've got Hermine over here. Crazy how, how this thing honestly became Hermine that quickly. We haven't really seen something like that in quite a while. In fact, I don't think that's actually happened since 2018 or something like that. So it's, we had Tropical Depression 10 from 2020, but honestly, that didn't even become anything. I'm talking about named storm-wise. We haven't had anything like that since 2018 when we had Florence come off of Africa and essentially affect portions of Cape Verde and all that sorts of stuff. Now, if this thing would freaking load, maybe I'd be able to... do this. I don't know why this thing's so freaking slow. Stream's going to be a whole lot longer than I probably anticipated because of what's going on with this right now. Because this thing's being slow. This thing is being honestly very, very slow as we speak, guys. We got 26 likes on the stream. It's kind of insane. But going ahead and looking over here at Hermine, you can see, I would say it's, not the best looking storm that you can ever see, but we do got a pretty big convection blow up going on right here. This honestly is probably where the center is, somewhere around this genuine area right here. We've got some cloud tops that are going up to as much as about negative 80, maybe negative 81, 82 degrees Celsius, but we are getting a little bit of like a big old blob of convection kind of blowing up, some cloud tops getting kind of high up in the atmosphere, in the stratosphere. You can see just heading off to the north. Again, this is expected to be a rather short-lived tropical cyclone. We only expect it to peak probably with winds of 45 miles an hour. And then this thing will be kind of, I think it's supposed to turn this way or something like that, and it's going to become extratropical. Or no, I wouldn't say extratropical, I'd say post-tropical, and essentially would start to die out. But as you can see, the center, it's probably around, I don't know where the center's at, it's probably somewhere around this area, somewhere around where my cursor's at. But it is kind of displaced, really, from that blow-up of convection. So it's not really, it doesn't really it's not really a, how should I say, it's not really a concentrated area. It's not really like, it's not under the deep convection. It's kind of slightly displaced a little bit from the center. And honestly, that's of course why we don't really expect much intensification. But honestly, okay, I'm going to shut up. Because I'm an idiot. Okay, so now we're going to go over here and we'll look at Tropical Depression 9. And honestly, earlier today, TD9 was looking rather pretty good. It had some convection blow-ups. It's getting kind of sheared right now. It's getting some kind of shear coming up from, I think it's coming from this general direction right here. Kind of coming from this way or something like that. We are getting some good convection blow-ups, though. And this is very likely to become a tropical storm probably over the next 12 hours or so. But we do got some pretty good convection blow-ups going on right now in portions of Tropical Depression 9. Center is, of course, kind of displaced a little bit. It's kind of getting sheared a little bit as well, which is why it's not the best-looking storm as of right now. But we are definitely looking to see this become a tropical cyclone. Actually, it's already a tropical cyclone. We're looking for this to possibly become a tropical storm probably over the next 12 hours or so. So keep that in mind. And then we've also got other things. We've got Newton over here. You can see, look how tiny Newton is. This is absolutely bonkers how tiny that that it is. I mean, just knowing how small Newton is. This is it's rather small, and I mean we're getting some convection blowups here and there, but it's not really your big time convection blowups that would kind of help to intensify this storm. We've got we had some cloud tops getting up as high as maybe negative 79 or 80 or something like that. But honestly, it's pretty tiny. So, yeah, it really don't got much of a life ahead of it. It's gonna be running into some shear and some dry air as well. So keep that in mind. And we've also got Tropical Storm Naru, which honestly, if you really think about it, it looks like a hurricane, or well, I should say a typhoon, because that's the part of the world that they call it typhoons instead of hurricanes and all that sorts of stuff. But this thing's got a well-defined central dense overcast, and I'm very surprised that this thing's only 50 miles an hour. But this thing, if this freaking Tropical Tidbits satellite would literally load. God, I hate Tropical Tidbits satellites sometimes. I really do. God. This thing needs to load. Come on. Okay. Okay, so, but looking at it right now, I mean, look how big. I mean, looking at the first few frames, that is a huge central dense overcast. And I do believe, if we go ahead and we look over here at the cone of Naru, it's not really expected to become really, really strong. I think the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, I think they expect it to become, what was it, like 80 miles an hour or something like that. Could be 100% wrong on that, but I think it's around 80 or 85 miles an hour. They expect it to, they do expect it to head towards the west through the northern portion of the Philippines, and might it try and get into portions of China. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Due to slow traffic, you'll experience slow loading at times. Well, okay. But yeah, so might see a typhoon making landfall here in portions of the Philippines. So keep that in mind. Probably I would say, as this is making landfall, maybe a minimal typhoon. 75 miles an hour, minimal typhoon as this thing is making landfall. And then, of course, it might try to intensify a little bit more, 75 knots. And then it might make landfall with as much as 90 knots of winds. And if you don't know what 90 knots is, well, this is what it is, all right? So 90 knots to miles an hour, that'd be 103. So this thing might make landfall with as much as 105 mile an hour winds as this thing gets into portions of China. So keep that in mind. Dash is completely right. Tropical storm will be damaging. Yes, it will be damaging. So let me get this straight. You're going to trust the models that change 200 times before the storm actually. Yeah, you really shouldn't trust the models much. They can still change back and forth. Some of the models have been shifting west for TD9, and but they're still the ensemble mean is still taking it towards Florida. But again, we could see this storm possibly making landfall, making a second landfall. First landfall could be just a minimal typhoon, and then of course it takes a little bit of its time in the Philippine Sea. And then, of course, after that, we get over here, and then it makes its second landfall, possibly with winds of as much as 105 miles an hour. So keep that in mind. We got to watch Nauru very, very closely. All right, so now we got tropical depression Talus, which there's really nothing else to really look at with Talus. It's dead. It's going to be basically tracking just offshore of Tokyo, of the east coast of Tokyo. Not Tokyo, Japan. I'm an idiot. Why did I say Tokyo? I meant Japan. Japan, bro. Japan. Oh, God. But, yeah, so this thing, it's essentially going to be it's going to essentially be, just offshore of Japan. It's not going to be really strong. So this thing's definitely, and it doesn't even have convection. So this thing is definitely on life support at this very point. And, of course, 99L. That's what that little area the National Hurricane Center has marked. Not really that much organized convection. It's more disorganized than anything else. And then you got 96W, which is also a pretty disorganized mess, but it could, according to what some of the models are saying, could become something rather significant. At least this is what the GFS ensembles are showing. Maybe something as strong as 982 millibars. So, of course, we would continue to watch that for sure. Of course, that is just what the GEFS ensembles are showing. Of course, if you look at the GEPS ensembles, nothing really much going on with it. And then, of course, the global hurricane models, don't really do much with it as well either. But the GEFS ensembles take it practically still away from Japan. Kind of makes it turn towards the east. And then it kind of just goes out to sea. So nothing really much to be worrying about with that storm for sure, even if it does become a named storm in the Western Pacific. Now we got some recon missions going on right now. We've got our third mission into Tropical Depression 9. They just lifted off as we speak. So that is, I think it might be a low level in drop zone, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But then we've also got our 28th mission. All right, we've got our 28th mission into Fiona. And they're currently in the storm right now, and they're getting some flight level winds of about between 96 and 113 knots. That's flight level winds. We don't got any pressure data yet, but this is kind of like the flight level winds of some sort. I don't think this is even in Fiona. I'm not even 100% sure. I think Fiona's like all the way up here. I'm surprised that Recon's actually going to go this far north into Fiona, but it's I guess they want to get some of that data in before it does make landfall into Canada. Of course, we're not really, I don't think they're not really technically in the storm yet. This is kind of, I guess, just some info or something like that. But I mean, look at this though. Look, 957, 954, 950. So it's getting close. It is in the storm. Okay. Just pretend like I didn't say anything, guys, because it is in the storm. I need to sleep, guys. It's like I'm tired. But it is in the storm, getting some flight level winds of about 96 to 113 knots. It's between 96 and 113 knots. We're getting some pressure readings. I think the lowest pressure reading we're getting right now is about 950.4. So definitely a lot, it ain't as strong. I don't think they've gotten to the strongest part of the storm yet, which is why they're only getting about 950 millibars as we speak. But it definitely, they're definitely still doing missions into Fiona when I thought they'd probably stop doing that by now, because of how far north it is. And then, of course, you got the other mission. I mean, you've got mission number 27 into Fiona, and look at this. They found pressure readings of 936, all right? They found pressure readings of 936 millibars. So this thing is definitely deepening in terms of pressure. And, of course, again, this is, of course, becoming an extratropical cyclone as we do speak. But Recon has found 936 millibars. So the Hurricane Center might go with 936 millibars at the intermediate advisory. That should be coming in here shortly. In fact, we've actually already got the outlook for the Atlantic in, and of course the Hurricane Center still gives it a 20 to 30% chance for 99L to form. But we should be getting our intermediate advisory on Fiona here soon, and I do believe that they'll probably still go with maybe 125 miles an hour, but I think they'll go with a 936 millibar pressure reading. So keep that in mind. This thing is definitely deepening in terms of pressure. So just be prepared to possibly see that, possibly to be the possibility. And if that is the case, then that would be a 4 millibar drop in a span of about 3 hours. So this thing definitely is becoming extratropical, but it might even be undergoing some bombogenesis type stuff going on as well. It could be becoming a bomb cyclone here very soon, very shortly too. So devastating conditions are very, very likely going on here soon. With Fiona going into Nova Scotia, parts of Atlantic Canada, and even portions of Newfoundland as well. And I think I was seeing something with some of the models earlier on. I don't think it was today, but I was seeing something like the GFS or something kind of turning Fiona into like a big old snowstorm or something like that. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, we'll have to see, I guess. But again, Recon did find 936 millibars when they went into Fiona, so they'll probably go with 936 as we do get towards the 8 p.m. intermediate advisory, which will be coming in here very, very shortly. So, yeah, that's basically all we've got right now. Now we're going to go ahead over here and we're going to look at the ensembles, all right? We're going to go ahead and look at the ensembles and kind of see what the ensembles are showing for some future activity. Any future activity that we do got. So this is Fiona right here. This is Gaston. This would be Hermine. This is 99L. And this right here is Tropical Depression 9. Now we're going to go ahead and kind of go a little bit forward. You can see that's Fiona right there. Actually, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and get our loop here. So, of course, there goes Fiona going off towards Atlantic Canada and all those areas. So let's watch the GEFS ensembles, all right? Look at this, all right? So that right there is Tropical Depression 9. Some models diverge really after it gets over towards, when it gets to the Gulf, that's when it really kind of starts to diverge a little bit. Most of the models take it into Florida, but then you've also got some models that try to take it towards the Panhandle, or maybe even try to take it towards Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. And then, of course, we got a little bit of action probably going to try and go on down here in the Eastern Pacific. I guess we'll see what happens down there. And then, of course, we've got a lot of ensembles trying to form more activity off of Africa. So that's also something that we might need to watch out for as well. Right now, the ensembles don't really show it getting really strong. But, of course, I don't think this is actually even the full run yet. I'm not even 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this ain't even the full GFS ensemble model run. But at least what it's showing over the next, I would say, 186 hours, it's showing that maybe something else could come off of Africa and might try to develop into something. That's at least what the models are hinting at. Of course, we got what's likely to become Ian over here. Fiona's up here. Gaston's over here. And Invest 99L is over here. And then some, actually, no, Invest 99L. Yeah, Invest 99L is right there. Hermine's right there. And then something tries to come off of Africa again and tries to get a little bit of some model support and trying to develop. But, of course, that's the GFS ensembles. Now you're going to go over here and look at the, I think it's the European ensembles. This is the European. All right, were we looking at the European? Yeah, we were looking at the GEFS ensembles, but this is the European. All right, this one is pretty similar to the GFS, but there you go. There goes Fiona, and then there goes, well, what's expected to become Gaston. Not Gaston, oh my God, Ian. Most of the models take it into Florida. There's a few models, again, that still take it into the Panhandle. One model tries to take it into Louisiana, but look at this. A lot of the models want to take it up to where I live, up here in West Virginia. So, I mean, some areas of West Virginia can get that for sure. But look at that. That's just... Some try to take it up to the Northeast, so we might need to start watching this a little bit. After it gets past Florida, a lot of the models are trying to say that it might try to kind of go up the eastern seaboard. Might make landfall in maybe North Carolina or Virginia. Probably around North Carolina, and then it kind of just goes up towards the Northeast and probably goes up into Canada and all that sorts of stuff. So let's go ahead and play this out again. So again, this is what's likely to become Ian. This right here is Hermine, Gaston, 99L. And then also the European ensembles kind of shows something coming off of Africa as well, and it kind of starts heading west. We don't want to see that happen again, but the European ensembles kind of try to take something a little bit to the west past the Cape Verde Islands. Not much model support going on with that, but I mean there is a few ensemble members starting to pick up on something maybe coming off of Africa and might try to start moving to the west. I've been hearing that we might get some Caribbean trouble as we go into the month of October. So that's definitely something that we will probably need to watch as time does progress. But as of right now, this is all that's really kind of going on right now. This is what the ensembles are showing. Again, we got what's likely to become Ian. We got Gaston up here, Hermine, and then we got maybe something that tries to come off of Africa. And, of course, you got Fiona up here as well. So, yeah, and you go ahead and look over here at the wind shear. Rather favorable from here on out for Tropical Depression 9 to become a tropical cyclone and make landfall in Florida. And, of course, again, as I said, I mean we're talking this thing's got, really low wind shear basically all the way up to landfall. And then, of course, it might run into some shear as it gets up to the Carolinas and going up into the Northeast. So keep that in mind, that's when it might run into a little bit of some shear. So I guess now, what do you guys want to do? Like, what do you guys want to do? What do you guys want to do? Because that's basically all I was going to talk about today. So what do y'all want to do? I talked all about that in 53 minutes. That's record time. I think sometimes it took me like as much as an hour to get it done. But like, what do I do now, guys? I think that's like the shortest amount of time that I explained the tropics ever. So yeah, I think it was like sometimes it would take me an hour, but which one's heading to Florida? That would be Tropical Depression 9. Might likely become a major hurricane before it does strike Florida, so it's definitely something to watch. Fiona's a beast. Yes, it is. It's rather strong. In fact, it's actually deepening as we speak. Even though it's becoming extra tropical as we speak, it's kind of going under extra tropical transition. Very likely to deepen and might even undergo some bombogenesis as it does become an extra tropical cyclone. It's going to be devastating to portions of Atlantic Canada, Nova Scotia. Going to have some really big surge probably. We're going to have a lot of flooding and all that sorts of stuff, so it's going to definitely be very, very bad. And, of course, the Hurricane Center says that when this thing makes landfall, I mean, it literally could still have winds as high as 105 miles an hour, or as much as 105 to 100 miles an hour. So, honestly, it's going to be a bad time for Nova Scotia and portions of Newfoundland as well. I mean, again, because you're going to get battered by a storm that's going to have 105 to possibly, 100 to 105 mile-an-hour winds, even once it is an extratropical cyclone. So, keep that in mind, that's going to be devastating. We'll have a lot of shear, not a lot of shear, what am I talking about? We're going to have a lot of surge, a lot of storm surge, a lot of flooding, and just a lot of very damaging winds. Probably going to have a lot of power outages up here as well. So, any of my friends, any of my fans up here that are maybe up there in Newfoundland or Nova Scotia, just be prepared to possibly be without power for at least maybe a couple of days. I guess we'll see what happens. I do think, honestly, what do you guys think? Do you think Fiona will be retired? Let me know in the chat. Let me know if you guys think Fiona will be retired. Personally, in my opinion, what it did to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic will probably deserve its retirement. And then, of course, on top of that, what it's going to do probably in Atlantic Canada and into Nova Scotia. I honestly think that Fiona's going to get retired, honestly. She'll be able to join Shrek, even though Shrek was never a name in the Atlantic, so, She'll be able to join Shrek, even though, Shrek has never, ever been a name in the Atlantic Basin, and it probably will never be one. Donkey! Fiona's definitely showing her ogre powers right now, guys. That's 100% sure. See, she's been tracking around the Atlantic trying to find Shrek. She's mad. She's pissed. She can't find Shrek. That's how pissed she is. So she's putting all of her anger. She put all her anger on Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Bermuda and now Atlantic Canada and Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. She's pissed. She can't find Shrek. But yeah, what do you guys want me to do now? I kind of just, kind of talked everything about what I was going to talk about today. I don't know what you guys want me to do. What do you guys want me to do? I don't know. Do you want me to end the stream or, what do you want me to do? How long did Bermuda get hit? Well, they started getting tropical storm conditions, what was it? I think it was yesterday morning or something like that. So I'd say probably about a day or so, probably, as it got closer and closer to Bermuda. I think the height of the conditions, though, was this morning. So what do you think about 09L and Miami? Well, it's possible. Maybe it could track towards Miami, because it is in the cone of uncertainty. But I do think that at this very point, that it's probably going to track along the west coast towards Tampa and, Fort Myers and all those areas, Clearwater Beach, all those areas right there. I think those are the areas that need to really watch out because that could be the area that really gets hit hard. I think Miami will Miami is very likely to get tropical storm conditions. Maybe some hurricane conditions maybe being possible there as well, depending on if it maybe makes landfall around this little area right here. But honestly, I believe that at best, I think Miami may get some tropical storm conditions, maybe not major hurricane conditions though, as what might happen with on the west coast. Could 9L hit Tampa Bay? It's very likely, I think, honestly. It's a very big possibility that it might even hit as a major hurricane if it does get into that area of the western coast of Florida. If it does get into Tampa Bay, again, as I said, it would be the first time in over 100 years that Tampa Bay and even Tampa in general would actually get directly hit by a major hurricane. I think the last time that happened was, I forget, I'll have to look at it, but I know it was over 100 years ago. So it's definitely been well overdue, 100%, for that to happen, for sure. We've had a few close calls. I'm 100%. Everybody knows that. We've had a few close calls last couple of years. We had Elsa. It became a hurricane along the west coast of Florida. It could have possibly made landfall in Florida as a hurricane, but shear kind of kept that in check. And of course, you had Ada. Ada kind of became a short-lived hurricane. When it actually became a hurricane again when it came into the Gulf, and it kind of like weakened because of a little bit of shear getting into the system and stuff. But like overall, Florida's really like spared a bullet from most of these storms recently. 2021, it was in the cone like 4 or 5 times, I think, and then it never got affected by a storm. And then 2019 barely missed Dorian. I mean, that was terrifying what went on with Dorian. I mean, Florida barely missed Dorian. I mean, we're talking, this is where Dorian was, and this is where Florida was. I mean, it was that close. It was like 40 or 50 miles offshore. I mean, that's how scary. That's how much of a bullet Florida has actually dodged over the last several years. Louisiana, has been getting hit really hard recently, so I'm kind of glad it ain't hitting there. But it's really unfortunate, though, that this is possibly going to hit Florida. 100%. We don't need a hurricane hitting the United States, but unfortunately, it looks like it's definitely the possibility. I mean, everybody knew this was coming one day, and we all knew that Florida would get hit again. We just didn't know when. And we always said, we said in 2020, Florida would get hit. 2021, Florida would get hit. And then here we are in 2022 saying Florida would get hit, and we thought maybe it would go another year without getting hit, and well, look at this. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, but be the first time since Hurricane Irma that a major hurricane would have struck the peninsula of Florida. So keep that in mind. It'd be the first time since 2018 that a major hurricane would have actually struck the state of Florida, but first time since 2017 since the actual peninsula of Florida actually would get affected by a major hurricane. I actually can't wait to see the videos that come out from what's likely to become Ian. Can't wait to see those videos come out. I know, I think, what's his name? I do know that Ice Cyclone, he'll be coming out. I know that, Mark Sudduth, he'll probably be going down there to Florida and setting up some cameras down there. I know that'll be probably happening here over the next couple of days. But I mean, I know we'll get a lot of footage from what is likely to become major Hurricane Ian. So we're gonna have to see what happens. So yeah, if it comes to me, I may record on my phone. Yeah, just make sure to record. It'd be pretty good. Be pretty good if you can record and stuff. It'd be pretty nice. But yeah. I think I'm just going to go ahead and end the stream here, guys. Could this be Wilma 2.0? I don't think this is going to be Wilma 2.0. It's not going to be taking the track of Wilma. And it's got the sea surface temperatures and the atmospheric conditions to support a Category 5, but will it become one? Very unlikely, I think, honestly. But yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here. Thank you guys so much for joining the Let's Talk Tropics live stream for September 23rd, 2022. Hope you guys have a great and amazing rest of your Friday, and I might try and do one of these again tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so thank you all for watching so much. Thank you all for watching so much. What the heck? Okay, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great and amazing rest of your day, and I hope you guys have a great and amazing weekend. If you guys live in Florida, be preparing right now for the possibility of a major hurricane. Your life depends on it, honestly. And I honestly think your life is a whole lot more worth than losing it. Don't want you to become history, and just want you to be safe. So, if the emergency personnel ask you to evacuate, please, by all means, evacuate inland. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.